Hello and welcome back to CMLL Monthly. As always, we will be starting off with going over the cards for the month, only going over what is uploaded on the official YouTube sub. Starting with the Tuesday shows for July 2nd, Arena Mexico's show has Fugaz versus Magia Blanca in a lightning match. Two guys basically on the same level, which is what you like to see with a lightning match, kind of a measuring stick to see who the better guy is. Futuro, Maxstar, and Hombra Bala win over the Mexican National Trios champions Los Indestructibles and challenge them to a title match for next week's show. The same night, on July 2nd, in Arena Coliseo Guadalajara, Felino celebrates his 40th anniversary. He is in the main event team with his son Felino Jr. versus old peer Blue Panther and his son Blue Panther Jr. The rest of this show is pretty standard for the arena, mostly Guadalajara only talent. This might be by design to let Felino be one of the biggest stars on the card and not be overshadowed by the likes of Mistico, Mascara, Dorada, Templario, so on and so forth, etc. The July 5th Friday Arena Mexico show is another Felino 40th anniversary show, the biggest of the lot with the best match as well. Felino and his son Jr. again, but this time taking on El Pantera and his son El Hijo del Pantera. Persephone gets a lightning match versus Tessa, and the main, semi-main trios are stacked with talent who are feuding. Euforia versus Esfinge and Templario versus Ultimo Guerrero in their trios matches butting heads. The first Saturday show of the month on the 6th of July in Arena Coliseo, Mexico City kicks off week 2 with Flip versus Barbaro and Captain Suicida versus Dark Magic lightning match. These two singles matches are the main reason to tune in. The trios fare is good if expected levels for this sort of Saturday show. The July 9th Tuesday show have first in Arena Mexico the Mexican National Trios titles change hands as Los Indestructibles drop to Futuro, Maxstar, and Hombra Bala Jr. We also get a Legends singles match between Blue Panther and Atlantis. The main event ends with another Trios title challenge, this time Mascara, Dorada, Star Jr., and Neon challenging Los Barbaros the following Tuesday Arena Mexico show for the higher on the card CMLL World Trios Championships. The Guadalajara show on July 9th will mostly go down in infamy as the last match Stephanie Wagner would have in CMLL before suddenly departing for NXT and WWE. Happy trails and good luck. Nothing else on this show was really must catch. If you want to, though, there's that last match for Wagner in the company, which was an okay match versus Tessa. It's not really anything to go out of your way for, other than the trivia answer that it's going to be, 5-10 years from now. Friday, July 12th Arena Mexico show started the Leyenda Plata tournament, and oddly, it ended up being a single elimination instead of a Torneo Cibernetico everyone was expecting for the blocks. That sort of made the whole thing not as good, and this block was the lesser of both blocks. Templario versus Ultimo Guerrero was great, even if the finish wasn't what people wanted and didn't feel conclusive. Rest of the card were fun trios. Overall, a good show, even if the tournament was lackluster. Week 3 starts with the July 13th Arena Coliseo Mexico City show. Nothing must-see here, but this was the first women's match to air on their YouTube after the vacuum of losing Wagner. She vacated both the CMLL Women's World and CMLL World Women's Tag titles. That's really the big thing that happened with Coliseo. The rest of the card is kind of what you'd expect. I normally only cover things on CMLL's YouTube, but it does make sense in my opinion to highlight Fantastica Mania 2024 in the US, the first time they've held a Fantastica Mania card in the US. That was a pay-per-view which you could get through New Japan Pro Wrestling World and aired or happened on July 13th. It was a good show, and the main takeaway for CMLL is Willow Nightingale getting the CMLL World Women's Championship, which Wagner vacated when she exited CMLL to go work again in NXT or WWE. Willow was good back in March when she made her CMLL debut at their large March pay-per-view event homage to two legends. I'm sure she will make a good champion, and I'm excited to see who CMLL pushes to beat her down the line. A little disappointed we never ended up getting the Willow-Wagner match that seemed inevitable had Wagner stayed in the company, but no reason to cry over spilt milk. We got a special showing of the Monday Arena Puebla show on July 15th because it hosted Arena Puebla's 71st anniversary show. This show only got put up actually a little later in the month though, on July 26th, but it's still worth noting as for the venue anniversary of the show. They had a pretty stacked card. Despite this not airing live, it will still be considered for the top 10 list, since you can now find it on the CMLL YouTube, and we will be putting a link to that in the description of this, just like we always do with anything we cover. The Tuesday shows on the 16th of July, starting with Arena Mexico, we got the CMLL World Trios titles being defended in the main event by Los Barbaros versus again Mascara, Dorada, Star Jr., and Neon. That's the main takeaway, and Mascara, Dorada, Star, and Neon did end up winning that belt and are new CMLL World Trios champions together. There are some other good trios matches on this card, and a lightning match between favorites Difunto and Fuego. July 16th in Guadalajara, the semi-main was Villanos versus Zandokin and Barboza in a tag match, which is the main match to watch this show for. But there's also a good singles match from Star Black versus El Guerrero. The main event trios full of star power and an Atomicos in the middle of the card. Pretty good Guadalajara overall, maybe even better than the Arena Mexico show that happened the same night. Friday, July 19th, Super Friday show in Arena Mexico. Doesn't live up to the previous week. I think this block of matches is better than last week, but the rest of the card is just heat building trios matches and an okay opening tag. Week 3 kicks off with the Saturday, July 20th show, which is Coliseo versus Coliseo gimmick show, with guys from the Mexico City version of Coliseo versus guys from the Guadalajara Coliseo arena. It doesn't really click as a concept that hits very well because of how much better known the Mexico City teams are outside of the main event, which has heavy hitters for both sides. The Tuesday, July 23rd show have a Torneo for the AEW International Title #1 contendership. The 8-man elimination Torneo Cibernetico. That really is the match to catch from this Tuesday, July 23rd Arena Mexico show, but it had a good semi-main with Neon versus Barbaro for the Rev Pro Cruiserweight title that Neon carried into the match. The undercard isn't bad either, one of the better shows of the month overall. Guadalajara, the same night of July 23rd, had Satanico versus Virus match and a women's Atomico match, which would be the matches to catch for that show. The final Friday of the month, on July 26th, had Lucha Bros arrive with Pac. It was a great show top to bottom, and the other main match of note would be Angel de Oro versus Star Jr., which was good and of course was for the Leyenda Plata finals. I'll try to watch this and La Copa Junior finals from earlier this year, which featured the same two in the final, and compare. We'll talk more about this when we go over the top 10. The final Saturday show of the month on July 27th is mostly notable for Villanos teaming with Akuma and Fugaz versus Espanto Jr. Lightning match. The final shows of the month were on the July 30th Tuesday. Starting in Arena Mexico, we had a tournament for the vacant CMLL World Women's Tag titles. That had two teams go on to the finals, which were going to be on the following Tuesday or the first Tuesday of August to determine who's going to be the new CMLL World Tag titles for the women's division. That's really the main thing to catch from that Tuesday show in Arena Mexico. For Guadalajara on July 30th, we had another region versus region gimmick with La Camarca versus Tapatíos, #2. So I believe they've done this earlier in the year. I don't remember exactly when the #1 was, but right here on the poster it says 2. Zonic is in the opening match, which is a 6v6 Torneo Cibernetico. If you don't know Zonic, he has been killing it on smaller shows, and this leading him to be featured maybe more on CMLL seems likely. The rest of the card is promising, but with many people who are mostly unknown for the general CMLL audience until the latter half of the card, like usual, where they get some more known names. With that, those are all the shows for July that you can watch on the CMLL YouTube. You should be able to find them all in the live section except for Puebla, which again didn't air live but was uploaded in their normal videos. So it's going to be a little harder to find the Puebla stream, but I'll be putting it in the links that we have in the description of the video, because some of those Puebla matches for the 71st anniversary show did make the top 10. In fact, without any further ado, let's go straight on to the top 10. And number 10, we have Xelhua versus Las Vegas for the Puebla title on July 15th, the 71st anniversary show for Arena Puebla. They had a little tournament, and that tournament then led to this show where these two were the finalists. The title was created to be a trophy title for this show. I don't believe Xelhua will defend this like you would a normal title. Maybe he'll defend it at yearly events. Maybe this could be the Arena Puebla anniversary title, so maybe we'll see him defend it about a year from now if they decide to do this gimmick again. Overall, good match, fun match. Xelhua is someone that a lot of people are excited for and have high hopes for. I honestly think that Las Vegas isn't bad either. I really enjoy his mask being sort of a throwback to Black Warrior, and of course we lost Black Warrior I think just last year, so it is nice to see someone kind of carrying on that mask. I think it's a cool design. So check out that match. Number 9, Mistico defending his NWA World Middleweight Championship versus Volador Jr. Again on the July 15th 71st anniversary show for Arena Puebla in that venue, Arena Puebla. This feud is one of the things that got me into Lucha Libre in 2017, and 7 years later and neither guy is showing any signs of slowing down. And Mistico is arguably as hot as he's been since his peak back in the mid to late 2000s. This is a proper main event for Arena Puebla's 71st anniversary, and I'm glad they threw it on the main channel and didn't just let this great match be a tapeless card on LuchaDB or Cage Match. They did this match last month as well. This is very similar and a very solid showing for both guys. Really, even though there's a title on the line, it feels more like a showcase match. Unlike last month when it was for a Mistico anniversary show, there was still some drama that maybe Volador Jr. could win this title, but spoilers, he did not, and Mistico continues to carry it. I think he's like on his 5th year with this belt. He's had it for quite some time, and beating Volador Jr. for this title, just another notch on the belt for Mistico. I'm really excited to see who he does end up dropping that title to, but we probably won't see that by the end of this calendar year. Number 8. Ultimo Guerrero versus Templario on the July 12th Arena Mexico Super Friday. Ultimo Guerrero is the final boss of CMLL, and his protege Templario here is who he's fighting. This match and feud has turned to Templario Technico, which is a big shift change. Much like Soberano turning Rudo last year, this puts Templario on the Technico column if this change holds. Seems he could be the first person to shave Ultimo Guerrero since Ultimo Guerrero lost his mask. When that'll happen, though, seems pretty uncertain if it even happens, but we'll talk more about what they've announced is going to be the Anniversario or 91st Anniversary Lucha de Apuestas. We'll talk about that a little later, but it wasn't Ultimo Guerrero versus Templario as much as a lot of people probably would have liked that match. I do still think that that could be on the books, but again, it's kind of on the back burner for now, given that we have a different main event announced for the big show in September. Number 7 is Star Jr. versus Angel de Oro for the Leyenda Plata 2024 Finals, which took place on the July 26th Super Friday, or the last Super Friday of the month. So when talking about the Leyenda Plata Finals, I do want to start by saying 2 great CMLL talents made it to the finals. While the block matches of the tournament were mostly underwhelming, none of them made it to this top 10. With these two, we knew we would be getting a great match. These two unload on each other and have another great tournament finals under their belt, having met for La Copa Jr. finals just a couple months ago. Some people might say this shows lack of creativity on the part of CMLL's creative. I do think this match is overshadowed by Lucha Bros being the main event on this same show, and doesn't feel as consequential as it does most years, which is a shame because I feel Angel de Oro is a guy who deserves to get his flowers and this big win. As much as I think Star Jr. held up his part of the match, I do think him feeling like less of a threat doesn't help this feel as big of a win as it would have been if, for example, Angel de Oro beats someone like Mistico, Templario, or Teton, who are all in Star's block and who have all won this tournament in the past. That being said, these two still put on a fun finale in an otherwise disappointing Leyenda Plata for 2024. I really do think that they should have called an audible here and given us a different finale. I really think that Star Jr.'s upset win for La Copa Jr.'s finale, that match was better because, we had a big upset win. And then Angel de Oro getting his win back here just kind of feels not as big or important. I would have preferred that either Angel de Oro got this win over someone who's more established and a big name, or that Angel de Oro didn't make it to the finals and instead we got more of a young up-and-coming final with Star Jr. and maybe someone like a Villano or Zandokin. But this is what we got. I would say that this is maybe the most disappointing of the 4 major tournaments we had this year. Incredible Pairs, Grand Alternative, and the Universal Championship. I think all of those did better and had better overall structures for the tournament and a more satisfying finish. So really kind of a disappointing Leyenda Plata this year. That being said, finale I did still put on the top 10. I do still think it was a good match worth going out of your way to check out, but it does feel a little deflating because we saw this same match 2 or 3 months ago and that had a more exciting outcome because of the upset win. Number 6 is Felino and Felino Jr. versus Pantera and Hijo del Pantera on the July 5th Arena Mexico Super Friday show. At the start of July, CMLL had a few 40th anniversary shows for longtime Rudo Felino, who mostly teams with his son Felino Jr. in prelim bouts on various CMLL cards. This was the highlight of those shows and a great showcase match for Hijo del Pantera, who seems like he will show up again in CMLL. This being his debut, and his father hasn't worked at CMLL much lately either, so this was really kind of a coming out party for the Panteras. It's really cool to see that happen at Felino's 40th anniversary show. Probably the most consequential match Felino's been in since getting his head shaved by Barbaro way back in 2021 as part of the breakup angle for their stable. On to number 5, Neon versus Barbaro Cavernario for Neon's Rev Pro Cruiserweight Championship on the July 23rd Arena Mexico Tuesday show. Neon is one of the most exciting talents in CMLL, and this was a good month for him. He also won the CMLL World Trios Championships from Los Barbaros this month as well. That Trios match didn't make this top 10 list, but easily could have. I feel like this singles match is just a better pull for the month for Neon and for Barbaro compared to the Trios match they had, I think, about a week prior. Number 4, Esfinge and Euforia versus Hechicero and Valiente on the July 26th Arena Mexico Super Friday show. On the last Wednesday talk show, Informa, of July, they confirmed the big Lucha de Apuestas mask match at CMLL 91st Anniversary would be these 4 in an elimination match. The first 2 in the match who get eliminated will be safe, and then the surviving 2 will do a mask versus mask match versus each other. Lots of hate in these 3. Only Esfinge seems to be keeping his cool, and even he showed some Rudo tendencies in this match, ripping at the mask and whatnot. As basically everybody has been hating on Esfinge this whole build, it seems like he's just getting kicked down and beaten every single time that they have the opportunity. Valiente and Esfinge had disagreements in some trios matches earlier this month, which has kind of led to them boiling over and being rivals, with Valiente even kind of coming off as a Rudo when historically he's been a Technico. This is basically a preview of what promises to be the biggest mask match in Mexico this year. Really, there's not another big mask match I can think of at the moment that's happened this year. Triple Mania and AAA are planning to do a big cage match, but it's not just a mask match. They also have hairs in that match, and there's a good chance that someone's just going to get shaved. That tends to be what happens if there's a big multi-man match with hairs and masks on the line. Usually you're not going to see a mask drop. So really, this is the biggest one of the year. I mean, maybe you could count that Triple Mania cage match that they're going to be doing in August. We'll kind of see how this pans out once September and August passes by, and we'll be able to compare the 2 matches. That being said, this was a good preview for that. We got to see all 4 guys in action. At the end, they exchanged words, and it kind of made everyone excited for the upcoming Lucha de Apuestas at CMLL 91st Anniversary. Number 3, Death Triangle, which would be Pentagon Jr., Phoenix, and Pac, versus Mistico, Volador Jr., and Mascara Dorada, the main event of the July 26th Super Friday show. It's been over 5 years since we last saw the Lucha Bros in CMLL, and this is Pac's debut in Arena Mexico. Last time Lucha Brothers made a splash, Phoenix was in the finals of Leyenda Plata versus Barbaro Cavernario. Pentagon back then was feuding with Mistico, who is now facing him in this trios, back to his more famous name and mask, Mistico. This match on July 26th is a catalyst that will lead to some great matches with the Lucha Bros, taking on top Technicos of CMLL. And the finish here firmly plants the idea that Death Triangle will be Rudos in CMLL, which seems to be the case for every person who has appeared in CMLL from AEW, outside of the one exception of Willow. I think some people will say I only put this below number 1 because of the recent news that seems to suggest that Lucha Bros are WWE bound. I think the bigger reason is that Phoenix and Pentagon in Arena Mexico is very cool, yes, but it happened 5 years ago too. And this is more of an introduction of Pac and a reintroduction of the brothers. And hopefully it leads to more, and I think those matches could be even better. If they go to WWE, just like with Vacker and before her Andrade and before him, Dragon Lee, I hope the best for them, but I don't watch WWE, so it would kill my personal interest for them until they leave to go back to AEW, CMLL, AAA, or wherever they may land after a WWE run. That being said, this was a really fun match. It had a very hot crowd, probably the hottest the crowd was this month, and I'm sure some people would argue the hottest the crowd's been this year. I don't know if I would go that far, just because the Mistico 20th anniversary shows were very hot and had very excited crowds as well. But still, I get the hype, and we'll talk about a poll I ran later once we talk about number 1. But for right now, we are going to move on to number 2, and that is going to be the Torneo Cibernetico for a shot at the AEW International Championship. That happened on the July 23rd Arena Mexico Tuesday show, and there's a lot that happened in this match, being a big elimination match. But really, the reason this is so high, I would think, at least, I'm the one that made the list, so personally, the reason that is that this scratched the itch for the Torneo Cibernetico we were all wanting after the Leyenda Plata for some reason was a single elimination format. This match was a lot of fun and the best Tuesday main event in a long while, and it really kind of shows you the promise that even if they did a smaller Torneo Cyberneticos for 2 blocks and had the finals like they normally do, how much promise that would have had and how much fun that would have had. This was a great elimination match and kind of what we should have gotten with Plata. Luckily they gave it to us for another reason, but it's going to be more throwaway in the annals of time because it's just going to be a number 1 contender match for an AEW belt and not one of the big 4 yearly tournaments they do. That still being said, great match, one of the best of the month. And with that out of the way, we'll move on to number 1, the actual best match of the month according to myself, and that is going to be Los Villanos 3 brothers versus Zandokin and Barboza. Los Villanos, of course, normally team with Zandokin, and here they are facing him with his other pirate gimmick friend, Barboza. Barboza hasn't as often been showcased as the other 3, and this was a place for him to show what he can do, and Villanos know Zandokin so well and vice versa that seeing them sort of trade spots was a lot of fun. I actually did do a poll on my Twitter, and here are the results. I had 2 mutuals, Floke of El Club Lucha podcast and Obliterati, who we all know of from our hearts. Both of them wrote in this number 1 option, and after reviewing the month, I really do think this tag team match is probably the best match of the month. I'll be thinking of including this in my top 10 at the end of the year list. Villano brothers and Zandokin have been so good this year, and they show how much their chemistry works as a group and a team, even when they're not on the same side. I do hope that Barboza can get lifted up the card with the other 3, maybe being a 4-man stable. I do think that CMLL kind of hates doing 4-man stables. It feels like they always want it to just end at 3, but I do like having 4 or 5 guys. That way you can kind of mix and match when you're doing these trios matches that so often happen on the cards, top to bottom. With that top 10 out of the way, here are some honorable mentions from the month. Really anything this month involving the 4 guys announced for the mask match: Valiente, Euforia, Esfinge, Hechicero. The 4 of them have been butting heads all month, which led to the announcement at the tail end of the month about the Lucha de Apuestas match happening at Anniversary. That's exciting, and it's nice to know that we have that set in stone at this point. The Leyenda Plata and the women's tag title tournaments weren't in the top 10, but really there was no standout match of the Plata other than the final. The women's tag titles tournament, it was fun. I mean, it was a Tuesday main event, and it did an okay job there. Really, it's more about setting up a match for the following week. Templario and Villanos versus Los Guerreros Langoneros on July 5th. First Friday of the month. That was a good trios. The CMLL National Trios title match on July 9th, where Los Indestructibles lost to Los Viajeros de Espacio, Future and Max Star, and Hombre Bala Jr. Indestructibles felt like the weakest champions in the company, so it was great to see them finally drop the belt. Just that didn't feel right on them. Los Barbaros dropping the CMLL Trios titles a week later on July 16th to Neon Star and Mascara Dorada was actually a match I put on my poll of the best matches of the month. When doing a review, it just didn't make the cut. Again, we included Barbaro versus Neon for the Rev Pro Cruiserweight title instead. Singles matches just short of making the cut. We had Gran Guerrero versus Akuma on the Puebla 71st anniversary show. We had Flip versus Barbaro July 6th in Arena Coliseum, Mexico City. Atlantis versus Blue Panther on July 9th. Probably the hardest for me not to include was Virus versus Satanico, which was a great fight from two seasoned maestros. The best match, as voted by my Twitter poll, was the Lucha Bros match. It was a great moment, but I think it hit different for people who weren't watching in 2018 when they were around for a long while, showing up regularly. Phoenix put on Match of the Year contender with Barbaro for the Leyenda Plata finals, which I mentioned earlier when discussing that match. Their appearance with Pac was great, and I hope to see more, but I think if they do have more matches, it'll just be that, more, bigger, and better than this, which is more of a reintroductory trios match where they weren't sure how they would act, and they ended up obviously showing that they'll be Rudo in CMLL. Again, it's number 3, nothing to scoff at. I think it was a great match, but I just don't think it was as fun as the Torneo Cibernetico, or again, Villanos versus Zandokin and Barboza. Big thing coming up in CMLL in August is their Grand Prix. And with the top 10 out of the way, we're going to move on to the third and final part of this video, which is going to be the coming up events in CMLL. Rather than going over the cards that happened at the beginning of the month for the next month, we're just going to go over the bigger cards, or the biggest cards that we have coming up. So the big thing coming up in CMLL in August is their annual Grand Prix. This is a World vs. Mexico Torneo Cibernetico elimination match, which will be the main event of the August 23rd Super Friday show. It'll be the biggest field they've ever had in this match, being 10v10 with both teams announced at this point. So since both teams are announced, we're just going to go over both teams and kind of discuss them. So Team Mexico will consist of all CMLL talents, as it normally does. We have Templario, Ultimo Guerrero, Atlantis Jr., Titan, Mistico, Mascara Dorada, Volador Jr., Esfinge, Euforia, and Valiente. The main thing that sticks out to me is the final 3 there, Esfinge, Euforia, Valiente. Being in a puestas for CMLL 91st anniversary just a couple of weeks after the show on September 13th. Hechicero will be in the UK, and thus he isn't on this show at all. If CMLL wanted Team World to win, they could do it by making Valiente, Esfinge, and Euforia implode at some point in the match, which could then cause Team Mexico the win, maybe even causing one of those 3 to be eliminated. We'll see if that does happen. They might just kind of ignore that and have these guys, maybe they get eliminated early because they can't work together, and then Team Mexico still prevails with the other people who can work together. Moving on to Team World, we have Kuro Kawan from MLW and South Korea, Flip Gordon, who is on the CMLL roster but is from the US, Rocky Romero from New Japan Pro Wrestling, coming in from the US, Robbie X from Rev Pro in the UK, Kyle Fletcher from Ring of Honor and Australia, Mansoor, who is from AEW and accounting for Saudi Arabia, Akira from MLW and the US, Davey Boy Smith Jr. from MLW and Canada, Yoda from New Japan Pro Wrestling and Japan, the final member of Team World being Claudio Cascinoli from AEW and accounting for Switzerland. This is a good crop of people. I've seen other people saying on Lucha Facebook circles that opinions have ranged from this being the best team CMLL has fielded in years for Team World, and others saying it's the worst. So, kind of pick your poison. It kind of depends on how much you like all of these talents. For me personally, I'm most excited for Claudio, but at the same time, he is also the main person coming from outside the company I'm excited for, if I'm being honest. But I have liked what I've seen from the New Japan Pro Wrestling representative Yoda as well, and of course, I love seeing Rocky, but he was almost basically a gimme given how much he's been involved with CMLL the last 2 years. The big event further out, coming in September, is going to be CMLL 91st anniversary, which is going to be the 13th of September this year. We have mentioned it a few times already, but on the July 31st episode of Informa, they announced the mass match will be a 4-way between Esfinge, Euforia, Hechicero, and Valiente. The first 2 pinned or submitted are eliminated from the match, leaving the survivor to battle one-on-one for the mask. It should be plenty exciting. Esfinge is the youngest one, with the other 3 all being peers who sort of broke out into CMLL and the larger scene around 15 years ago as the 2000s were coming to a close. They all got brought in and have been strong hands in the company since. I believe Hechicero is a little younger than the other 2, who are both in their early 50s. So with that, it seems that either Euforia or Valiente are the favorites to lose their mask, and it could go either way. It could be great, and I'm very happy that they're doing this and not a cage match. I'm actually planning to be at this show live, and I'm thrilled to see these 4 in an Equestus together. Really, again, I was dreading a cage match. I don't like cage matches. I think particularly being there in person and then having that cage kind of obstruct your view of the whole main event would have, for lack of a better word or better vocabulary, sucked. So I'm glad that we're actually getting something a little more unique. This 4-way, it's something they don't do often either, so, you know, a one-on-one maybe would have been preferred, but a 4-way, especially when it's all for the masks and we don't have hair in here and like an obvious loser, the Triple Mania main event last year. I think that makes this exciting and something that, you know, it's going to be worth the $35 to spend to watch live, or however much you're going to spend to buy a ticket. I've already got my tickets all set up, so I'm excited to be there live. CML has stuff announced past September, but we aren't going to go into that in this video as they will be talked about in the next month's episode. So with that being said, we are at the tail end of this episode, or really the sign off. So what was your favorite match for July? Who do you think is going to win Grand Prix Who do you think is going to win Grand Prix, Mexico or World? If you think World's going to win, who do you think is going to bring it home for Team World? Vice versa, if you think Mexico is going to win, who do you think is going to bring it home for Mexico? As always, like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Check out the abridged history of Lucha Libre video I put out last month. It's 15 minutes going over the first 36 years of Lucha Libre. I'm working hard on part 2, but that was put on hold to work on this and get this out in a timely manner. Trying to get it out before the halfway of the month has passed by for August. That's all for CMLL Monthly this month. I'll see you guys in September.